Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome to the stream and welcome back to the channel. First things first, make sure you smash like on this video and please do click that subscribe button. And Chelsea host Brighton on Wednesday night, back in Premier League action, looking to make it back-to-back wins after the Boxing Day success away at Villa Park. And joining me to preview the game and do a predicted lineup is Theo from the Shed End podcast. Theo, thanks for joining me as always, mate. Unfortunately, before we get into looking ahead to the game, we're going to have to start with the bad news. Confirmed this lunchtime that Ben Chilwell will miss the rest of the season and will require surgery on that ACL injury that he picked up in the win against Juventus in the Champions League. Your initial reactions? I mean, I don't think as Chelsea fans we're that shocked. I think it's more perhaps a little bit of disappointment given the fact there was a slight glimmer of hope that he may be back at the end of January.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's just that little glimmer of hope that he'd be fit, midway through January, end of January, made us fans believe that maybe we'll have a half a season more of Chilwell. But realistically, when you have an ACL injury that's serious, it's hard to avoid the surgery. So it's kind of frustrating that we've almost delayed the surgery by a month or two. And, 6 weeks to assess it, where just to tell us that he does need the surgery. But yeah, it's going to be a difficult 5 or 6 months if we don't get any left wing back cover in January, because I don't believe Alonso can play every single minute, every single game, or Saul or Aspi. So I think we will go into the January market, or maybe even recall one of our left wing backs. But it is a big blow because we know how important Chilwell was during that October-November period when he was almost scoring for fun and keeping clean sheets. So frustrating.
Yeah, it is. I mean, are you almost? I don't know if I'm frustrated or annoyed at the club in the sense that, why did they wait when I know that perhaps they had slight hope, but the initial scans all suggested that he would require surgery anyway. So I'm not sure. I don't know if I feel slightly annoyed at the fact that we've delayed the surgery and pushed his recovery 2 months further down the line. I'm not. I mean, obviously we don't have access to the scans or the medical staff or the records or whatever. But as you say, we're not medical experts, but you very rarely come across an ACL injury, whether full or partial, that doesn't seem to require any sort of surgery in a footballer. I mean, do you feel the club got this one wrong?
I mean, like you said, it's quite hard to know what happened behind the scenes, what the medical report came up with. But, if we could have just gone into the surgery straight after that Chelsea-Juventus game, a week or two after, rather than wait a month or two, then that probably means we could have maybe had a Chilwell fit for the beginning of pre-season or maybe end of May. So it is a bit frustrating, but like I said, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. Maybe it's Chilwell who was trying to, postpone the surgery himself. Maybe he was not wanting it. He wanted to try to see if he could, continue with rehabilitation, on his own. So we don't know.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, I guess the club would have done what they thought was right at that particular time, and it's easy to look back now and be slightly critical. But obviously, looking ahead to January, this window becomes massive now. We have to bring in a left wing back. I mean, there's several options. Obviously, Twitter, when the news broke, is all awash with what we should or shouldn't be doing. I mean, let's start with let's go through some of these options then. Bringing back Emerson or Matson from loan. For me personally, I'm not sure either of these options are what we should be doing. I think the Emerson one's quite difficult to do in terms of the fact I think if we were to recall him, we would lose the 12 or 13 million pound buy option that Lyon have on him. So I guess we're looking at making some money there in the summer potentially. So that looks quite difficult. But then again, I know he did well when he played at the Euros for Italy and he's done okay in a Chelsea shirt, but it was him that was deemed surplus to requirements in the summer, not Alonso. So, I mean, I'm not sure if him coming back really makes much sense. And then with Matson, obviously an exciting young player, another one from Cobham, and we should know by now that we should trust, players that are coming through the academy. They're making up a large part of the first team squad at the moment. But with Matson, he's young. This is his first season of senior football, playing regular football at Coventry City in the Championship. I think it's a lot to ask to recall him from loan to come and play a part in a title race and going deep in the Champions League. So again, that's a no-go for me. I mean, what are your thoughts on those first two options?
Like you said, I don't think the Emerson one makes sense to call him halfway through his season. Even though he's Premier League experienced, I never really felt he fully adapted compared to Chilwell and Alonso to that left wing back position. And we'll lose the buyback option that Lyon have, and as well, I don't think he'll be entirely happy if he's recalled and having to play, second choice, maybe a game every 2 weeks rather than, a game every week like he's getting at Lyon, I think. Ian Matson, I think, is a very exciting player. I think he started that game against Grimsby in the League Cup a couple of seasons ago under Frank Lampard. And I was at that game at Stamford Bridge and I was quite impressed by him. Watched him a few times in pre-season. He's pacey, he's skillful, he's quick. And I think he'll be a good option as a left wing back in that position. But like you said, not Premier League experienced. He does need maybe a loan, to a lower Premier League club before that, or even going abroad. So it's a big ask to get him, which gives us the third option, which I'm sure you're going to speak about now.
I mean, yeah, and the most obvious option that a lot of fans have been, kind of crying out for is obviously Lukaku from Everton, obviously fallen out of favour under Rafa Benitez for whatever reasons, not sure. A Premier League proven as well, which is absolutely vital, I think, when you're signing someone in January. Yes, there'll be a settling in period to a new side, but he knows the league, which is a big, big plus. The guy's a French international. He's played for Barcelona as well. He's a decent footballer. And, I mean, if say it's a 6 months loan deal, address this again in the summer, perfect. Or if we can sign him for, say, 20, 25 million pounds, then I think that's also a good piece of business. If he were to be a backup to Ben Chilwell, I feel Marcus Alonso would probably be moved on in the summer. What are your thoughts on the Lukaku transfer? Do you feel that's something that we should be looking to do?
I think it makes sense for all parties. Everton clearly maybe want to move him on. He's out of favour with Rafa Benitez, and it looks like Rafa Benitez will stay beyond January. So I don't see the two of them, seeing eye to eye again, and especially now that they've signed this Ukrainian fullback. Premier League experience, like you said, which makes sense. He's got good delivery. I think is the option that makes the most sense. One thing that kind of frustrates me is just looking at our past, trying to negotiate with Everton. It's often been tricky. You go back to that John Stones deal that fell through in, I think, 2015 when they were asking for a ridiculous amount of money and we couldn't, agree with a fee for him with the club. Same, I think, with Lukaku when we tried to sign him back, I think, around 2016. So it's going to be quite difficult. I can see him, even though he probably wants to leave and probably wants to join a top 6 Premier League club, I can see Everton playing hardball and it's going to be quite tricky. But I think if we manage to get Lukaku on maybe a 6-month loan or even a permanent fee in January, I think that would be brilliant. I've watched him a few times. He's got a brilliant free kick, good delivery. I think I'm not mistaken, he takes corners for Everton from time to time, which is what we need now. We've seen, after that Leicester game, that the Alonso and Reece James delivery can be very hit and miss at times. So I think that's an option that makes the most sense, and I'll be quite excited to see him come in January if it's the case.
Yeah, I think it's probably the easiest deal to do if there's such thing as an easy deal. For the reasons you said, obviously Everton have signed another left back now. He's not in favour. Everton, the Telegraph reporting that Everton are also potentially interested in Ross Barkley as well. I'm not sure if that's a loan or a permanent, but if we can get rid of him and Digne comes as part of that deal or something along those lines, and I think that's also a good piece of business. Looking outside of Digne, other options that I know Twitter's not the most reliable source, but other options that have kind of been doing the rounds. Rafa Guerreiro from the Portuguese wing back from Borussia Dortmund. Obviously, Thomas Tuchel knows him from his time there. Do you think that could be a good option? Does that excite you?
I don't know too much about him, if I'm honest. I remember watching him, in the Euro 2016 when Portugal went on to win it, and he seemed quite decent. But yeah, I back Tuchel. If he wants to bring back one of his former players that he's worked with, that could be quite sensible as well. Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's important that also we don't bring someone in that we haven't extensively scouted. With Guerreiro, I don't think we've extensively scouted him, but Thomas Tuchel will know the player having worked with him. So that doesn't represent as big a gamble. Another couple of names just before we move on to previewing it. What do you feel about someone like Robin Gosens, the German international from Atalanta? I think he's played well there. I thought it was okay in the Euros as well. Is that someone that you think could do a solid job? Yeah, good player, Champions League experience given the last couple of seasons that Atalanta have made it into the European competition. German, a lot of German players at Chelsea, German manager, which is an option as well. However, I still think you need that Premier League experience in January. You go back to like Juan Cuadrado when we bought him in January, it didn't really work out, So you want a player that, can come in, knows the country, knows the language, adapt straight away. And if you were to bring in someone like a Gosens or a Guerreiro, make that in the summer, but not in January. Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. And then just last one, then obviously Theo Hernandez has been doing the rounds on socials. Obviously a very good footballer, playing currently at AC Milan, French international.
this is never, well, I mean, I could be wrong, but this is never going to happen in January. And if it were, it would cost a lot of money. That could be maybe one looking more towards the summer. I know people might say, oh, yeah, but what about Ben Chilwell when he comes back? Let's be honest. Chilwell, they're saying, might be fit for the World Cup in Qatar end of next year. Chile's not going to be back to his best football until the end of next season or maybe the start of the following season. I think people are underestimating how hard it is to come back from an ACL and then get back to the level you were at before and push on from there. So if we bring in someone that could slot in as a first choice, I think that competition's healthy. You know, City, I know Cancelo plays left back for Manchester City quite a lot, but their two right backs are Kyle Walker and João Cancelo. I mean, that's ridiculous. Both good enough to start for every team in the league, you'd say. So, I mean, would you be opposed to going for someone like a Theo Hernandez in the summer, perhaps?
Now that you mentioned, like, Chile probably won't be fit come, end of next year or after the summer, it is quite worrying. You look at Loftus-Cheek, how long it took him to recover from his ACL and get back to his best, and you could argue still that he's probably not back to his full best like we saw in that Europa League season. But obviously, Theo Hernandez is a brilliant footballer. He contributes to goals. I think he plays as left back for AC Milan, but I think left wing back would probably suit him more. But long term, I think that's definitely an option. Should we move on Alonso in the summer and maybe sell Emerson Palmieri to Lyon on a permanent deal? I think having the option of both Ben Chilwell and Theo Hernandez would be quite a scary duo. So I'd be fully for that. Maybe in the summer once we kind of reassess what Ben Chilwell's recovery date is, but not in January. It doesn't make sense in January, and AC Milan won't want to sell at all in January.
No, 100%. Considering they're still obviously going for that Serie A title, that would be a big loss for them. But yeah, certainly a big January ahead for Chelsea. Mourinho with a lot of decisions to make. A left wing back 100% has to come in. Let's just hope the club makes the right decision and we don't recall someone from loan. We need to bring someone new in, as far as I'm concerned. But Theo, looking ahead to tomorrow night, obviously back in Premier League action, Brighton come to Stamford Bridge. In a corresponding fixture last year, this was the one where the Super League all fell apart. The protests outside Stamford Bridge, Petr Cech coming out, the bus was delayed, kickoff obviously subsequently delayed as well. The game itself was terrible, but I think that was insignificant on the night, given the fact that, we finally got the Super League kind of all collapsed, etc. Brighton come back to Stamford Bridge on the back of a 2-0 win against Brentford. Obviously, we're coming off the back of a win against Aston Villa, really important win to just about stick in the title race. This is a must-win game again, isn't it? And this is the sort of game that we've slipped up in this season. You kind of we've drawn to Burnley at home, Everton at home. Brighton are quite hard to break down, etc. They're going to come and just put everyone behind the ball. I mean, this is the sort of game that we should easily be winning, but it won't be simple, will it?
It won't be simple. Brighton aren't that type of team that concede, 3-4 goals in every single game. They're quite solid defensively. Graham Potter set them up to play some very good football. Their left backs, left or wing backs in Cucurella and Lamptey are very, very solid. I'm expecting a tough game, and we can't afford to drop any points, especially though we've got Liverpool on the 2nd of January, which is a must-not-lose game. And but yeah, it's gonna be tricky. Just as long as we don't slip up like we did to Burnley and Everton at home. But I think what gives me a bit more hope is how we played against Everton, having Lukaku back to his best. I want to say back to his best. I don't want to jinx it, but he looked very, very good against Aston Villa, and he should be starting tomorrow. And I think we'll do it in a bit, but when we do our predicted lineup. But I think we'll be playing a very similar lineup that we did against Villa. Just disregard the injuries. And but yeah, I think Brighton will give us a very good game. But if we want to be challenging for that first spot, or at least the top 3, then we should be. These are the type of games that we should be winning.
Yeah, no, we 100% have to be winning this game. Obviously, we've got. This is our next second game in a space of a few days. Played on Sunday, playing again Wednesday, and then we've got no game until the following Sunday. So a bit like 3 days rest or so. Do you think Tuchel's going to have half an eye on the Liverpool game with his selection against Brighton, or does the Liverpool game slightly lose a bit of importance if we don't get the 3 points in this one?
I think he will obviously have the Liverpool game in the back of his head, but at the same time, we've seen the season and with the COVID cases and the injuries, you can't really afford to make too many changes to the lineup, and we don't really have that much depth anymore with the Werner and Havertz and Loftus-Cheek all out. So, like I said, I think we'll probably go with our strongest 11 on tomorrow night.
And just on that, are you obviously a lot of managers, Pep, Tuchel, Klopp loves them own as well. But I think on this point, I think it's very valid. Are you surprised, given the amount of COVID cases, currently in and around Premier League clubs with playing staff, that we are the only league that hasn't got 5 substitutions, given that it was specifically brought in for COVID?
It's very odd. We don't have 5 substitutions. We don't have a winter break. Are we protecting the well-being of the players? We're seeing, a surge of injuries at the moment, a surge of COVID cases. And obviously you could maybe say, being Chelsea fans, that it would be favourable to us to have, 5 substitutions over a Norwich, a Burnley or a Watford, who don't maybe have that much depth and, quality off the bench. But at the same time, in a season like it is at the moment, which is very similar to how it was when Project Restart kicked off in June 2020, we need to be having those substitutions to, protect the players, protect them from injuries, and also, allow players to clubs to avoid this case of having to postpone games as well, because, that most of it is coming from injuries and COVID cases. So yeah, it kind of still baffles me that we haven't, reintroduced that 5 substitution rule.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't think it favours the bigger sides either. Yes, okay, you might have a bit more quality to bring off the bench, but at the end of the day, it's about preserving players' fitness and their health. Like a perfect example, Tuchel, we didn't want to play Hudson-Odoi for a full 90, first game back since COVID, but because we picked up a couple of injuries, we couldn't take him off, so he had to play the full 90. So it's just little examples like that, not necessarily looking to change the game, but it's just protecting the health of other players that you don't want to rush back. So yeah, it still baffles me, but obviously they've got to get a 14 club majority vote to get that through, and I just can't see that happening, which I just don't understand at all. But yeah, I mean, what sort of a threat do you feel Brighton could pose? I mean, as we've touched on a few good players, Tariq Lamptey, obviously back at Stamford Bridge, came through the academy at Cobham's, done pretty well since he joined Brighton. Danny Welbeck's back, and like Neil Maupay scores goals up front. Basuma in midfield's quite decent. Trossard as well. They've got a few players that could cause us a couple of problems.
Yeah, they've got quite a good squad, a lot of quality in there. Like I said, Potter sets them up to play some good football. But one thing, if you've noticed from how they've played this season, is similarly to us, they don't take their chances. Bar that Brentford game where they scored 2 great goals and they looked quite solid, and they scored the chances they created. They aren't clinical in front of goal. They miss a lot of chances. So that gives me a bit of hope. But like Chelsea in a way, we don't take our chances either. We create so much and we have so many touches in the box and crosses and deliveries, but there's nothing in there at the end. A game that you could be winning 5 or 6-0, you end up only winning it 1-0, and then you allow a team back into the game, like we did with Burnley, like we did with Everton, even United possibly. So I think tomorrow it's going to be a question of whichever team takes their chances, and we have more quality on the pitch, so it should be us. But yeah, Brighton do have that type of players, like you mentioned, Trossard, Maupay, Basuma, who can kind of threaten and attack us on when they take their chances. But we'll see.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I mean, are you concerned at all? Obviously, Brighton are most likely going to come with a low block, men behind the ball, and it's going to be up to us to break them down. We've seen ourselves struggle to break teams down, particularly at Stamford Bridge. I mean, do you feel that we could be struggling again tomorrow night to break the side down? I mean, how important would an early goal be? Because, if you get an early goal against a side that's come to play with a low block, it forces them to come out and more opportunities will be created.
Yeah, like you said, that early goal is going to be so important. Should it be 0-0 at halftime, then it's when I'm a bit worried, a bit frustrated. I'd rather almost be 1-1 at halftime than 0-0. And when that Norwich game is an example, we scored 1 and then we just kept scoring after that. Yeah. If we can kind of score a goal in the first 10, 20 minutes, then I could be quite confident we can snatch a win. But, if it's 0-0 at half-time, then it's going to be a frustrating second half and 45 minutes, I can imagine, from a Chelsea perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the longer these games go on without a goal, then the more frustrating it gets, and then the more likely you are that actually you might sort of let one in the other end because you're desperately going for a goal yourselves. I mean, this, again, I think we've said in the title race, we're clinging on. This game is must-win, particularly with the fact we've got Liverpool and City coming up. We've got a really packed January with Liverpool, City, Tottenham in the league as well, and then 2 legs of a Carabao Cup semi-final against Spurs as well. So playing Spurs 3 times in a month, and then we're playing City and Liverpool. So it's not an easy month. So we really need to get the win here to then keep us in contention heading into those big games. So we drop points here, then for me, I'm not saying the Liverpool game becomes irrelevant. It's never irrelevant, but it's lost a little bit of spice off it because we're probably going to drop points further behind. But yeah, must win, and we've definitely got the quality to do it. But yeah, we're going to move into the predicted lineup now. So I'll just bring the screen up. Mate, I think the goalkeeper's pretty simple, isn't it, really? Edouard Mendy between the sticks. He's got 2 games left, it seems like, before he goes off to the Nations Cup. Pretty obvious selection, isn't it?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense just to play Mendy. Like you said, 2 more games, this one and the Liverpool game before he joins up with the Senegal national team. And then we rely on Kepa to do the job, in January. But yeah, he's a solid keeper, catches the ball. A lot more reassuring from crosses. Just needs to work a bit on his distribution, like I keep saying, but it makes sense for him to start in this game.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. I mean, moving on to the back 3 now, a few issues here, I suppose. Obviously, you have no press conference today. It must be because it's like one of those weird bank holidays in the UK. What do you reckon we do in the back 3, Theo? Because Thiago Silva went off with what was said as a hamstring problem against Aston Villa. You wouldn't expect that to be sorted by tomorrow night. Even if it is, would you still be leaving him out, considering the big games we've got coming up in January? Because I certainly would.
Yeah, 100%. I don't even expect him to be on the bench tomorrow. I think we need to focus on him recovering well and being fully fit for, January. So I think my back 3, it depends if, like you said earlier, if Tuchel has one eye on the Liverpool game and he brings in an Aspi or a Malang Sarr. But if that's not the case, then I think Rudiger, Christensen, and maybe Trevor Chalobah are the 3 options for me.
Yeah, mate, I think that's exactly what I'd have gone with. I think Christensen to come into the heart of that back 3. I know Chalobah got subbed off at half-time against Villa, but he wasn't that bad. I think that was more of a tactical change, and he hasn't really done anything to not warrant starting. I mean, I don't think Aspi would come. I mean, if one of these was going to be wrong, I'd probably say Aspi could come in for Chalobah, or he might play instead of Christensen. But I mean, I think it would make sense for this. This would be our strongest back 3 for this game for sure. I mean, just quickly, what do you reckon about Christensen's future? Still, nothing seems to be sorted. So I don't know how. I mean, he's obviously changed his representative, so he sacked his dad, and he's being represented by someone else now. This contract situation just seems to be dragging on and on. I mean, seen reports today, don't know how accurate they are, that he's waiting for Barcelona to table an offer, and if they don't offer one, then he'll sign for us. I mean, I don't know how accurate that is, but I mean, his form has dipped quite a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of just since maybe November time, he's kind of been in and out of the team, and you don't really know what's happening behind the scenes, if it's him pushing for the move, if it was his ex-agent or his old representatives. But if he doesn't start this game, I think there's kind of a bit of danger in his future. If he doesn't start, tomorrow, then you're starting to think January is when these players are allowed to talk to foreign clubs. Then you're a bit worried as a Chelsea fan, because you could be losing those 2 players there, Rudiger and Christensen, in the summer. So if we can get this Christensen deal sorted, as soon as possible, then that's better, because it's been dragging on for a long time now for a player that you'd think would want to be staying, who's a Cobham graduate, he wants to stay. But it's more frustrating than the Rudiger one for me.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think the Rudiger one's been quite consistent. He doesn't feel Chelsea are offering what he wants. So yeah, and his level of performance has not dipped at all, whereas Christensen's for some reason has. But yeah, I totally agree, mate. I think that's our strongest back 3 for the game tomorrow, and it's must win. So I think we can't be making too many changes at the back. But if one of these was going to be wrong, I'd probably say Aspi has got a chance of starting in that back 3 potentially. Moving on to the fullbacks, mate. Obviously, pretty straightforward. Don't really have very much depth here at all. I guess Reece James and Marcus Alonso. Again, I know Reece James was pretty poor against Villa, but he's obviously going to keep his place. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, it makes complete sense to start James and Alonso as the fullbacks, kind of our only options at the moment. Maybe in the second half, tinker a bit with that and bring James as one of the 3 centre-backs and put someone like Pulisic on the wing, like we saw in the second half of the Villa game. But to start the game, I think Alonso and James makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think this is a game that we might see maybe a sound against that left wing back? I don't think we need to be kind of taking the piss too much with our team selection.
No, I don't expect to see Sal anywhere near that starting 11 for tomorrow.
But yeah, no, I think, Alonso and James, we don't really have many other suitable options in either of those. I think Aspi, for me, at right wing back is kind of a finished experiment now. I mean, against lower opposition in the FA Cup or something, you could probably get away with it. But yeah, I think Aspi just doesn't have the legs anymore. I mean, if he's going to play, he'll play in a back 3. So yeah, I think by default, almost, Alonso and James will be the fullbacks again. Into the midfield now, so a few more options. Again, not sure if Loftus-Cheek is COVID-free, whether he's out of isolation or not. We don't know that. I'd say even if he is, they wouldn't have trained for at least a week to 10 days. So very unlikely to start. And again, no update on Kante's injury either. But, with his fitness concerns that he's had so far this season, Theo, would you be agreeing with me that this is a game we just need to leave him out and make sure that if he can be, we get him ready for Liverpool?
Yeah, even the Liverpool game, I don't think he'll be fit for that. But
No.
similarly to Silva, I think don't even risk him in this game, even if he is half fit. Just let him recover an extra week. Like we've seen with Kante a lot, was we just rush him back and then he just gets injured again. It's that same recurring, knee injury. So I think it makes complete sense to not start him in this game and just go with Jorginho and Kovacic. And Kovacic, in fact, looked very, very sharp when he came on against Aston Villa. So I'm more than happy with those two in midfield.
Yeah, no, mate, 100%. I think that with Kante unavailable, it definitely makes sense to play those two. I mean, how impressed have you been with Kovacic since his return from injury and then Coates? He's had a long layoff. I mean, he got a little bit of time against Wolves, had a half in the cup against Brentford, and then he looked really sharp, as you said, when he came on against Villa. I mean, he's going to be really important to this side going forward for the remainder of the season. Yeah,
I mean, he's been injured for about 8 weeks, so we almost forgot what it was like to have him in the team. But like Tuchel said, he's the type of player who could wake up at 3 a.m. and be ready to train. That's how professional he is. So it's a huge, huge boost to have him back fit and, get him to play some of those games in January. I was wanting all three of those midfielders to be fit, including Kante. I think we have all three of those options and we get to bring one off the bench, and halfway through that second half, that's when we're at our best. But yeah, I'm happy. It's a huge boost to have him back.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. I mean, he's probably going to have to play. Obviously, I don't know if he's fit for a full 90, but I mean, if the game's going well, he could play for an hour and then we give Sound against a half hour from the bench or Ruben Loftus-Cheek if he's back fit again. I'm not sure if Kovacic will play the full game tomorrow, but again, it depends on what options you've got available. Moving to the front three, Theo, this is always a tough selection for us as Chelsea fans. We've got so many options there. I mean, there's been no update on Timo Werner or Kai Havertz. Even if they were to be COVID-free, they wouldn't have trained for at least 7 to 10 days. So it's unlikely either of those would be involved from the off. They could make the bench potentially. So with that in mind, I mean, Hakim Ziyech could potentially be available again as well. Let's start with centre forward. I mean, it makes sense. Surely Lukaku's now ready to start.
Yeah. It's got to be Lukaku, back end of that Villa performance. He needs to be starting. He's got a couple goals in him for this game as well. So it makes complete sense to start him. And even if he's told not to start, he'll probably go to Tuchel and say, I want to start. That's how eager he is to play for his football at the moment. He said, we are hunters at the moment. I love that quote. He will be wanting to play every game now. So he needs to start in that number 9 position.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. He has to. And we look so much better. We've got a focal point up there. And I thought what made a big difference against Villa is he wasn't just stuck to one section of the pitch as such. He was able to move around, see how he runs channels as well. Rather than just being kind of fixed in that box, he does offer a lot more, and it's great. I think that's the first time really we've seen that since he's come back into a Chelsea shirt. So the fact he's got license to do a little bit more rather than just be a centre forward, I think that makes a big difference. Obviously, going to left and right hand side. Mason Mount on the right-hand side. I mean, didn't have a great game against Aston Villa. Do you feel that he'll keep his place again? Would you pick him tomorrow night or maybe a Hakim Ziyech instead? I mean, what do you reckon?
I'd pick him personally, but then the other option is he has been playing a lot of football recently again. And it's whether you a bit like the centre-back situation for maybe Chilwell coming out for Aspi. You do wonder, does Tuchel have one eye on the Liverpool game and start someone like Ziyech ahead of maybe Hudson-Odoi or even Mount? But like we said, it's a must-win game, so we have to be going with our strongest 11. So I think it makes sense to start Mount and Hudson-Odoi. And Hudson-Odoi, he was probably one of the, he played a brilliant game, 90 minutes, which probably was too much for him, given that he just recovered from his COVID situation. But yeah, if we can get Hudson-Odoi to start, put in a good shift, and then maybe bring in someone like Ziyech for the second half, then that's more than good.
Yeah, I think Sir Alex Ferguson always said the quote that, you always want to start with your best players, even if we're perfect scenario, say we're 2 or 3 goals up at half time, just take a couple of the lads off, give them a 45-minute break or give them a break for half an hour. But you don't want to bring them on chasing a game because perhaps slightly more susceptible to injury. So I would start Mason Mount. And yeah, I'd start Hudson-Odoi as well. It looks like him and Lukaku have got a good link up going on down that side. I mean, a great ball in for the header. Obviously, a nice ball that set Lukaku away to win that second penalty. Just a quick word on Hudson-Odoi. I mean, I think people forget how young he is. He's 21, the youngest player in Chelsea history to reach 10 Premier League assists, surpassing Arjen Robben. He's actually been in and around the first team setup for about 3.5 years now. This is the first kind of real consistent minutes he's been getting. I mean, would you go along with the fact that you probably think I feel he's probably the most talented winger at the club at the moment. If he could just sort his end product out, then which will come in time. I don't think anyone's the finished product at 21. Look how long it took the likes of players like Raheem Sterling to improve their finishing, etc. I mean, how highly do you rate this guy?
He's a brilliant footballer, really, really talented. And I feel like one of those players that also gets better and better every season. We talk a lot about academy graduates, Mount, Reece James, and at the time, maybe Abraham and Tomori, but we often forgot about Hudson-Odoi because, like you said, he's been around the setup for the last 3.5 seasons. So, yeah, brilliant footballer. He just needs to work on his finishing. A couple of times we saw in that first couple of minutes of that Man United game, 1-on-1. Same with, in that chance he had against Villa. If he can work on that, then he's got a really, really bright future. And he's already kind of fulfilling that. So, and I'm glad as well that he's getting consistent game time because I think that's what was missing from his football in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. He's and people forget how young he is. He's kind of now at the age that Mason Mount was when he had his kind of first season in the first team. And look how much Mount's improves. I think there's more levels to go for Hudson-Odoi. And I do think he's one of our best attacking players. I mean, do I prefer him to Christian Pulisic right now? Yeah, I probably do. But I'm not saying Pulisic's a bad player, but for me right now, he's not really a starter for Chelsea, in my opinion, but I wouldn't be surprised potentially if he did start. But yeah, I mean, we're picking a side, I think Hudson-Odoi 100% deserves to play. So, I mean, looking at that side there, I think that's more than good enough to beat Brighton. It just depends what happens on the night. Can we break the team down? Can we take the chances when we're presented with them? That's going to be the key, as you touched on earlier, mate. You're going to the game, obviously. What are you thinking with the score prediction before we wrap up?
I think if we go with that lineup that we just picked there, if Romelu plays like he did against Villa, has that link-up play of Hudson-Odoi, I think we'll score a couple, and I think we do have it in us to keep a clean sheet. Like I said, Brighton often waste their chances. They're not clinical in front of goal. So I'm going to go with 2-0 Chelsea, Lukaku, another header from Lukaku, and a Jorginho penalty.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, I'm feeling confident tomorrow night. I'm going to go 3-0 win. I think Lukaku can get himself on the score sheet again. And yeah, we've got to keep this momentum going now. Keep building, pick up as many points as we can. And then heading into that Liverpool game right on Sunday is so important, that we get the win tonight, keep that momentum rolling. So yeah, I feel confident 3-0 win. But yeah, guys, that's just myself and Theo's thoughts on the Brighton game, obviously the left wing back situation as well, and our predicted lineup. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below or in the chat. Let us know what you're thinking, if you agree or disagree. Make sure you follow Theo on socials and listen to his podcast. I've linked it all in the description, guys, so make sure you check that out. And as always, smash a like on this video. Please do click that subscribe button. It really helps me out. It helps the channel grow. And I appreciate all of your support. Theo, thanks for joining me as always, mate. And let's hope we can get the win tomorrow night. And we'll catch you in at the Brighton review, guys. Cheers.